This is a demonstration of a plugin I've developed called Relative Tap Tempo, which drives a system of reactive backing. It's the first element in a toolkit that I'm developing to work toward a more creative and musical use of technology in live popular music. Traditionally, pre-recorded backing tracks are the standard way to include extra instruments in live performance, but they rely on a fixed click, which forces a musician to follow the backing. The point of reactive backing is that the backing track follows the musician. The plugin Relative Tap Tempo works by comparing the position of a tap to the beat of the backing track. So if the tap is before the beat, the tempo is increased proportionally, but if the tap's behind the beat, the tempo is decreased proportionally. The idea behind this system of control is that foot taps are a natural response to music and might hopefully provide an intuitive means of tempo control. In developing this system, I have found that the reactive nature of foot tapping can make it difficult to effectively control the system while playing an instrument. It's apparent that there's a process of retraining to make your foot tap in a more controlling manner without distracting you from playing. To help with this retraining, the plugin gives immediate feedback of how far ahead or behind you've tapped by flashing a shade between green for ahead of the beat, yellow for on the beat, and red for behind the beat. And if the number disappears completely, then you're outside of the deviation range entirely. The setup here is for a solo singer-songwriter, and part of the testing in the future will be to see how effective it is with groups of musicians. I'll expand on the various controls and the stats functions, as well as detailing the other tools in development after the demo. This is a song I wrote recently called Inbetween.
First met you, I think I thought I knew it never suited you, so trace the contours of our lives with overexposed eyes. The sky is deep, the seas are high, and in between you and I, the lightning strikes and storm winds sigh, and in between are you and I and all the lives we share. Yeah. It took some time to do. He looks just like you. Now I think I know I knew. Memory writes anew. So chase the shadows of their lives with sepia-filtered eyes. The sky is deep, the seas are high, and in between you and I, the lightning strikes and storm winds sigh, and in between you and I and all the lives we share. Yeah, yeah. Seas are high, and in between you and I, the lightning strikes and storm winds sigh, and in between you and I, the sky is deep, the seas are high, and in between you and I, the lightning strikes and storm winds sigh, and in between you and I and all the lives we share. Yeah.
So that's the demonstration song. The four main controls to the plugin Relative Tap Tempo are as follows. Deviation. Deviation controls the percentage amount of change for each beat that will be allowed. Anything outside of that, as I said previously, and your tempo number disappears. Averaging is the number of moving averages that are going to be taken for every beat. So I've got 3 at the moment. You can go to 1, which of course makes no difference at all, or up to 4 for a whole bar. The averaging reset on is essentially after a beat of not having tapped, it wipes out the previous tempos. So the averaging is reset to 1. So it has more effect when you come in again. Sensitivity is the amount that the effect is applied. So 6 is 60%, 100, 100%, so on and so forth. Offset is whether or not you have a particular bias. So if you are early, you'll have to put the offset to a positive number, and if you're a little bit behind the beat, like myself, you set it to a negative number, minus 3% at the moment. That's relative to 100 BPM. There's also a nudge function here, which is a permanent up or down the number of BPM that are set in this particular control. It's different to the Ableton nudge function in that it's permanent. That's essentially it for the controls. Stats. This brings you a textual list of every single beat that was hit, and the milliseconds, bar, beat, ticks, BPM, and new BPM. This is useful because it contains all of the beats, including the beats where you missed outside of the deviation. Unlike the Ableton, which has the Ableton track, which just has the beats that got through, which is useful for an overview. So that's essentially it for Relative Tap Tempo. That's available to download through my website, timcamphor.co.uk, for free. It is on a Creative Commons license though, so you're more than welcome to use it or copy it, but not to make any money out of it. It's running Ableton 8 at the moment, but you will need, of course, Max for Live to run the plugin. Other elements I'm looking to do are a transport control, which will probably be called a looper. At the moment, transport is completely linear. You've got to go from beginning to end, no change. If you wanted, the transport control would enable you to select a portion of the track which you might want to loop, for example, the solo. So you wanted to stay on it for longer, you could loop the last 2 or 4 bars of it, tell it to keep going until you punch out of that mode. So it'd be a mode you jump into. Dynamic control is another idea I'm looking at, an audio effect that monitors incoming volume, and if it goes over a particular level, it'll push the velocity levels of the MIDI tracks so they react a little bit more like musicians that you're playing with. Final idea is a lot more ambitious. It's a system of audience control. So lots of people coming to gigs will have smartphones. The idea in this case being that a lot of them will have Wi-Fi enabled smartphones which could potentially run OSC, Open Sound Control. There's lots of OSC apps that are free at the moment. You could set it up so that you could map, for example, one person's phone onto a cutoff for the filter of a synth maybe, and allow them to have a particular control. So they're a part of the performance in a way that really hasn't been done before. So there's the ideas. That's the toolkit I'm working toward at the moment.